Hey y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glace, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, and all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin-baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/reallife. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of LSU's Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser-cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdown scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out-of-the-ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday hosts and hostess gifts to the coolest finds for kids, to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure.
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And today I have a couple special guests in the studio, and this episode is going to be different, but it's very important. And this is a story I've known about for years now. And the story needs to be told, and then we'll get into it and explain that. But so if y'all would introduce yourselves, ladies first.
Hi, Reagan Rinaudo.
And Reagan, where are you from?
Addis,
Louisiana,
Louisiana,
y'all, right? Yep. And then y'all that don't know, that's just across the river in West Baton Rouge, right?
Correct.
Born and raised there?
Born and raised there.
Born and raised, right? And I have my brother from another mother. Introduce yourself, sir.
Zach Simmers. And I currently live in West Baton Rouge, but I'm not from there. I'm from White Castle, Louisiana. That's where I was born and raised.
You can hear that on that accent, on both of y'all, across the river accent. But so Zach is y'all know I don't use this term lightly. He's a true law enforcement professional, and we first became associated together during the Mary Pucho's case. If y'all remember, I'll talk about him a lot on that. And we're going to talk about that case again in a minute also. But unfortunately, you know what? I haven't even named the episode. Can you tell us your mama's name?
My mom was Sandra Rinaudo.
All right. So I'm going to say, I don't want to hurt your feelings and make you upset.
Okay. It's okay.
And then we're going to name this episode The Homicide of Miss Sandra Rinaudo, right? Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And so back to it, Zach worked for the West Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office for how many years?
I'm in my 19th year there at the Sheriff's Office now. It's the only job I've had as an adult is working for West Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office.
And Zach is currently running for sheriff for West Baton Rouge Parish. And this is certainly not a political show. We've been wanting to do this story for a long time. But again, I came in contact with Zach in the Mary Pucho case because he's a detective that actually stepped up. And y'all remember they were saying it was an accidental death and all that. Well, hell no, it wasn't. And he had the balls to step up and take on I hate to say the powers that be, but put himself out there and ultimately solve the case. And I want to thank you for that, Zach. And he and I share the same mentor, just on different levels, who's our dear friend, and he's deceased now, Richie Johnson, who brought me up in the polygraph world, and we became very, very good friends over the year. Rest in peace, Richie. And Zach, Richie was kind of mentor to you.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wouldn't be for Richie Johnson. I wouldn't be running for sheriff if it wasn't for Richie Johnson. He was certainly a mentor, and that's an understatement, if you will.
He probably one of the greatest law enforcement professionals I've ever known in my career. Yeah. And may he rest in peace. So, y'all, we're going to tell you about Reagan's mom's case. And Reagan, tell me about your mom and where you grew up, how she was with her personality. Paint us a story about your mom.
My mom was she was a very quiet person, but she had a personality with the ones that she knew really well. She was funny. She was hilarious. Right. She was loving. She was a lover of animals, right. All things nature. She was the grandma that my kids would love to go over to because, she always had a special treat, as she would call it, for them. Right. She would make, Mississippi mud or dirt cake.
One of my favorites,
just the best sweets ever, and then staying up and watching movies and,
Right.
making pancakes at 1:00 in the morning.
Right.
She was just fun.
She was a mom that loved being a mom.
Oh, absolutely.
And tell me about growing up with her.
Growing up with her was fun. Again, all things animals, all things nature. Always, she was very much a hands-on mom. We never stayed with babysitters. We, every weekend it was something, whether we were going out to the park or go and make some kind of discoveries behind the levee, seeing what kind of finds in nature we could, find. It was, she was a great mama.
What was your favorite meal that she cooked you?
Oh my goodness. Which one?
Give us a couple.
Chicken stew.
Really?
Yes.
That's a good
Yes.
country stuff there, boy.
Yes.
Right?
And for Thanksgiving, she would make a cornbread dressing that had pork chops. It had boneless
Right.
pork chops in it. That was amazing. I still don't know how to make it, but it was so good.
My mom makes that cornbread, not that fancy, but she, it's one of my favorite things also. And let me ask you this. Without getting too personal, what's one of the worst times you ever got in trouble with your mom or she got mad at you? If you can tell.
I mean, there was several, no doubt.
But tell us one that's not going to get you in trouble.
Let me see. Well, in a picking sense, I mean, she was a wonderful cook, so she would always fuss at me for making, boxed mashed potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
I was always looking to find ways to cut corners to cook because I never wanted to learn how to cook because then I knew I'd have to.
Right.
So boxed mashed potatoes it was. And
That's
she would-
no.
Yeah, no.
Right.
She was like, no, you can't do that.
So she was, in Addis, right? And,
Yes.
And was she from there also?
She was. She was born and raised in Addis. My grandfather was actually the first constable
Really?
of Addis.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And so life goes on, and tell us about your story, your mama's story.
Well, my mom was an alcoholic. That wasn't anything that was, a secret.
Right.
So she did battle alcoholism for a very long time, and her and my father had their outs, between alcoholism, him being a musician, many different facets, I guess, to, and being married. But my father was very abusive.
Physically abusive, mentally
Physically,
abusive?
well, both.
Both. Okay.
He had called me in the middle of the night, sometime around 2-something in the morning, saying that he thought my mom was dead.
And when was this, right?
This was August the 9th of 2013.
Right. So, wow.
Yes.
And see, you get the phone call, and he says, "I think your mama's dead."
That was his exact words, yes.
Right. And what'd you do?
Of course, I hurried up and got over there. It was about a 45-minute drive. And when I got there, he was, completely out of sorts. Didn't recognize me at first, didn't realize who he was talking to, but he was trying to fight his way get into the bedroom with her body.
So somebody was stopping him, or law enforcement?
Initially,
was there?
yes. Initially, law enforcement was stopping him.
So when you arrived, that everybody was there already.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there was, the police, the paramedics, everyone was already there.
It's okay, baby. Take your time. And that's got to be one of the worst days of your life.
It was the day I lost both my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get there, and he's out of sorts, and he's trying to get into the room, or...
Yeah, he was trying to get into the room. And initially, law enforcement wasn't letting him in. But then, someone that was a friend of his that was in law enforcement did let him in. And I guess things initially didn't look like anything was wrong. I didn't know what to think. When I got there, I had no clue what she had died from. Of course, the assumption was she had drank herself to death.
Right.
That's kind of what it looked like, I guess. But it wasn't until later on that I found out, that no, her death was actually a homicide, and it wasn't, accidental or natural.
So let me bring you back a little bit. Let's go back to that night. Your mama was in the bedroom. Was she in the bed or?
Her body was on the floor next to the bed in the master bedroom.
Okay. And they were thinking accident or?
Well, there was a lot of alcohol bottles all around her. And that wasn't like her. She hid her drinking. She would hide the bottles, and then she would go to wherever it was, take a sip, put the cap back on, and put it back.
Right.
So she kept it hidden. So for there to be alcohol bottles everywhere, it was really, really, really unusual.
Yeah. And the rest of the night, I guess they worked the scene, and the coroner came and took your mom.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then let's go to the funeral. Tell me what.
He wanted a quiet service, a private service. He didn't want it open to even most of her family members, and I really didn't. I didn't know why. I knew he didn't get along with some of her family members, although I found it strange, that they weren't allowed to go, and he didn't want anyone to know when it would be. He wanted her body cremated, and that was something I had never heard before. I knew she didn't want to be buried in the ground.
Right.
But all the rest of our family members had mausoleum plots, but he didn't want her buried. He wanted her cremated. And the coroner's office is the one that stopped that from happening. They actually denied the cremation permit. So, and that was how I learned that her death had been named a homicide.
Right. And so tell me about, first, how old was your mama?
My mom was 59.
Wow, it's a couple of years older than me, right? And then, so tell me how you learn that it's now being worked as a homicide or classified as a homicide.
Because the cremation permit was denied, when we were supposed to go and get her ashes, the ashes were not ready. And they had asked us to call the coroner's office to find out why. They couldn't tell us why. And the coroner's office had told us that they had denied the cremation permit.
Because they
had determined her death was a homicide, that she had been beaten to death.
There you go. So I know, and Zach, you can jump in anytime with the law enforcement side of it that you want. But so evidently they took her for an autopsy.
Correct.
And did it say specifically what the cause of death was on the autopsy? Was that what did it say?
Her pancreas was severed.
Really?
Yes. She died of internal bleeding.
That's a pretty severe beating or blows to do that. Most times you only see that like in car wrecks or something like that.
I think they even listed that on the in the final report from the autopsy that severe trauma, such as car wrecks, airplane crashes, things like that.
Right. And I mean, that's only, in my experience, that's the only thing. I don't know that I've ever had someone die from being beat severely if the pancreas was busted, basically.
Yeah.
And so what happens? I mean, it's just 2013, and we're in 2023.
Right. Well, it was small town police department. It wasn't a situation that they were used to handling.
Right.
And the one and only detective, he knew everyone in the town. assumed, she had drank herself to death. It was, the bottles were everywhere. So a lot was missed over when it came to collecting evidence. The interviews weren't done right then and there. Time went by, and then once they said it was a homicide, I guess maybe the detective didn't want to believe it, whatever.
Let me jump in here for 1 second.
Yeah.
All right, so in 2013, I was in the narcotics division doing my thing, so I wasn't really aware of what was going on here. But as soon as we started reading this report, when we got it, several of the injuries that she had was consistent with the injuries that she had when she was found dead.
Right.
So, that's a red flag, if you will. It's basic police work 101.
Right. And so, 9 times out of 10 in a small department like that, one detective, naturally they'll call in the sheriff's office at least because you have more experience. So at what point, you learn that your mama, they're listing it as a homicide, even though he's not working it, and Zach and him are looking at it now like, holy smokes. At what point do you start bucking up? What point do you like, hey,
what's
the
going on
professional
here?
said, the professional pathologist says it's a homicide?
Well, of course, it's only natural. You don't want to believe that one parent had something to do with the other parent's death.
Right.
I didn't want to. I knew the only person possible could have been my father.
What's your father's name? Because we haven't said it yet.
Eddie Rinaudo.
Right.
He was, according to even him, he was the only person there, that there was nobody else there. Nobody else came in the house, anything like that. So the obvious would have been my father.
Right.
So, and he was swearing up and down he didn't do anything to hurt my mom.
I don't imagine he's going to come out and say he caused all that trauma.
Of course.
Self-preservation.
Right. But at the same time, I also didn't want to believe, that he could have.
Right. Yeah.
I knew he was abusive. There was no doubt there.
Right.
But, to think, my dad killed my mom.
Yeah.
That was something I couldn't. So I trusted the police, and that was who I had known my whole life, and trusted and believed him. And he was saying, no, it wasn't a homicide. There's something wrong here. The coroner's office is wrong. It wasn't a homicide.
Right.
So that's what I believed.
And at what point did you stop believing that?
When that same detective told me, another coroner had, or a forensic pathologist had said that no, she actually died from her liver bleeding out due to heavy alcoholism. And I said, well, wait a minute, was her pancreas severed? And he said, yes, it was. And I said, well, how does he know? And how did her pancreas get severed? It didn't make any sense to me. So in this forensic pathologist actually, I had an independent review done by the East Baton Rouge Parish Coroner's Office. And they also concluded that, no, she absolutely did die from a severe beating.
Yeah, a very violent death.
Right.
And what year was that, Reagan?
That was in the beginning of 2014. Right. So, initially going from, no, it wasn't a homicide. She didn't die from that. This is the coroner's office. They're wrong. She fell down the stairs. They investigated it as an accident. Mm-hmm. They didn't investigate.
They tried to prove it as
Correct.
An accident instead of a homicide.
Right, but their theories just weren't even making sense. Mm-hmm. But again, I wanted to believe that my father did not do anything to hurt my mom.
Right.
When I started noticing inconsistencies in what he was saying, and I started questioning him about it, he would get very defensive.
Right.
And he didn't want to talk about it.
What kind of inconsistencies?
Well, For one, he was saying that the dog had woke him up, and the dog was a little 2-pound Chihuahua, and he slept in the bedroom upstairs. But he said he would sleep with the door locked and shut and everything else, just so Mom, if she had been drinking, she wouldn't come upstairs and bother him.
Right.
Well, then I asked him, well, how did the dog get in the bedroom? And he stopped and he was, and I said, well, yeah, that's not making sense.
He didn't think of that, right?
No.
You know what? The one thing that never changes?
The truth.
Right. And so it becomes defensive, and you have the independent review done, and again, it's listed as a homicide.
Right.
And what happens?
Well, so I reached out to everyone, and I always asked, the police chief, hey, look, there's something not right here. Please do something. We need to find out who killed my mom. I don't want it to be my father, of course, obviously, but, I need to find out who killed my mom. I need to know why my mom is dead. So the police chief did agree, well, let's see what we can do to get the case reopened. The Attorney General's office did get involved. They had a couple of investigators in on it. They actually told me, we know he killed your father, but we can't do anything.
Your dad killed your mom.
All right, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And they can't do anything because they didn't have enough evidence, or?
That's what they were saying.
Yeah. And what year was this?
This was end of 2014, 2015.
Right. So time marches on. Let me digress for a minute. You and I got involved, I think, after I did the podcast on about Mary Pouchot. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's how Zach and I got hooked up. Go ahead.
I want to say something, too, and this is all despite 2 separate coroner's office reports saying that Sandra was murdered.
Right. So, well, Zach, let's talk about this. Now, West Baton Rouge certainly has its more populated parts, and then it has its more rural parts like Addis, right? Sure. And, I'm not throwing shade on anybody or whatever because I bleed blue, but some people just don't know what they don't know. The small town apartments, this. And then it becomes a little bit of piss and contest sometimes at the sheriff's office or the AG's office comes in, and they were like, why are they getting involved in my investigation? But it shouldn't be like that, right?
Absolutely not. And while this was going on, when was this? July 2022 when we started working this case. I don't remember, a little bit before that, maybe March. January, March, February. I can't remember. I was neck deep in the Mary Pouchot investigation myself, so I had to reach out to another team of guys that I knew and worked well with and trusted, and said, "Hey, man, I need you to put a team together." And and his name's Glenn Hennigan. He can't be here. He can't speak. We're kind of under a little gag order here, but I don't really care. And I'm going to, just like you said, the truth is the truth.
The truth is the truth.
So that's where we were with that case. We were, like I said, I won't say knee deep, neck deep in the Mary Pouchot investigation.
So let's talk about that real quick. So I started doing I'll never forget it. Everybody kept asking me to do Mary's case, and I was like, I'm not doing another one. So, it takes too much time, et cetera. And then I was sitting in my country place, and finally, the old matron from the jail, Karen Ortolano, shout out to you. She hits me up, and she said, "Woody, can you please just talk to Lori, to the sister? She's a dear friend of mine." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll talk to her and just placate her." And get on the phone, and she starts telling me the story. And she said she had the photograph from the funeral home that wasn't supposed to be taken, et cetera. The guy, family friend, gave to him. And I said, "Can you send me the picture?" And she sent it to me, and I was like, "Damn." And I said, "Let me call you back." And I showed the picture to my wife, and she was like, "How can you not use your platform and your gift? That girl obviously was murdered." So tell me, and I'm going to come right back to it. At that time, how did you get involved in Mary's case and all that?
shout out to you and your podcast.
I appreciate it, bro.
So several months before that, I learned Mary's brother, Mr. Lucius.
Right.
He went to the DA's office and said that, he had some questions about a case involving his sister. So I received a phone call from the district attorney's office asking me if there was a unsolved murder in Irwinville. I knew nothing about what he was talking about, so I looked into it, and then indeed there was a quote-unquote unsolved murder in Irwinville.
Yeah.
So I started looking into it.
Actually, they were trying to call it an accident,
Correct.
Right.
Yes. So I started looking into it, and I met with some of the detectives, and I really didn't like the way it was going, but I had no control over doing anything about it. I wasn't over the detectives division, and I'm not bad mouthing anybody, but I didn't have anything to go off of. And then I hear that a podcast is coming out about it, and I sat in my office late one evening and I listened to the first episode of your podcast. Well, rewind back a little bit. I don't remember exactly when Mr. Lucius and I met with his whole family, me and some of the detectives, and I made him a promise that day that I would be involved in this case.
Right.
And I didn't know whether we were going to solve it or not. I didn't know if Mary was actually murdered, but I needed to look at it, and I would do what I could.
Right.
And after I took that ass chewing from Mr. Lucius, so this was after the podcast, I'm sorry, he was in handcuffs 24 hours later. It was very simple, and I remember thinking to myself, this man is going to think that we trumped up some charges.
Right.
We arrested him in 24 hours when this has been going on for almost a year, and it's just right there. You just had to look for it.
Yeah, but say, I'm going to touch on this, and it's going to be important in your mama's case also, Reagan. There's good and bad in every profession, and when I looked into that case, I was like, holy fuck. And caught the guy and some lies and stuff like that. And he said, try to collect cameras from across the street. And then I talked to that lady, and she's like, that dude's never been to my house in his life. And all these different things. So either in law enforcement, nobody does it to get rich, right? Either you have a passion for it, for justice, and I'm evidently very empathetic. I tell these people, hey, I'm going to work your case till I solve it or I die, or we'll disprove it another way. But what you're up against, and I'm not throwing shade on anybody across the river, what you're up against is this guy. I mean, Peanut was an ex-warden for West Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, prison, right?
They're a small town, yes.
Right. And everybody knows everybody. It was Lucius' best friend, Mary's brother's best friend since they were babies, basically, and everything else. So you are now, and I did it on the podcast, but you're now stepping up as a man and as a law enforcement professional, which the world needs more of. And you're like, you know what? Let the chips fall where they may. If shit's done wrong, it's done wrong. And I'm going to work this, right? And kudos to you. I've said it before, and I've thanked you on the podcast before and everything, and I've thanked you in person, but I want the world out there to know what kind of law enforcement professional that sitting in this room today, either you have it or you don't.
Let me add something to that. This is not just me. This is me and a group of guys. And shout out to all of them. They know who they are.
Right.
And some of the general duty detectives. And it took us all coming together to do this. And and the totality of everyone coming together got this done, and they got it done quick.
Right.
Whereas my problem is it should have been done from day one.
Exactly. So let's talk about that. There's two elements to that. It should have been done from day one, as all these cases that I work, and even in my law enforcement career, I made my bones off cold cases of work. I'm like, what? Why wasn't this done? You just care so little that or whatever, whatever the reason may be. But key word or key thing you said is you had to bring people together. It was a team effort. Shout out to all those guys. But somebody had to be a leader. Somebody had to be like, I'm about to step on some I'm about to piss some people off here, but you know what? It's the right thing to do, so I don't give a damn. We're going to work this case, and if Peanut had been innocent or whatever, and you could prove that, then great. But if he's not, he's a murderer. And I mean, he's 40-something years they were married, and beat her to death. So anyway, y'all came in, and I'll never forget it. I was in teeing off in Maui with a very bad hangover. I probably shouldn't say that on there. And Trent called me from Channel 2, and he was like, Woody, they're blowing up our phone lines. That Zach and him got Peanut arrested today. I'm like, I didn't know. And so just shout out on that, bro. And he ended up pleading out to 60 years. I went over to court that day. I think that might have been the first time you and I met in person. But to all y'all that did that, the world needs more of it, especially with the way everybody looks at cops now. And they need better leadership and people who aren't afraid to take these cases on, right, and do the job. Because you know what? And you live this. A homicide, a cold case homicide, I always say it's like having a migraine. Everybody knows what a migraine is, but unless you got one right now, you can't really feel the pain, right? And it's a part of a club nobody wants to be a part of. And Zach, you and your leadership and the guys you got over there, that's it just speaks volumes to me as a law enforcement professional. So let's go back to your mama's case. What happens? The AG's office comes in, says nothing we can do, and what's your relationship with your dad like at this time?
It was non-existent.
Right,
non-existent.
You get two independent, one is a state. And
Hey, ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore, because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone support and supplement. It's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC. Hey, y'all. Changing my wardrobe from summer to fall, it's never easy. Luckily, Quince offers timeless and high-quality items I adore, ensuring my wardrobe stays fresh and I don't blow my budget. And there's nothing easier than going to Quince and choosing these high-quality items, like cashmere sweaters from $50, pants for every occasion, washable silk tops, and so much more. The best part? All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes, and I love that. I got the stainless steel Link Apple Watch band for $59.90. It's heavy duty, it's awesome, and it's like $100 less than I could find anywhere else. And I also got a 100% organic cotton fisherman quarter zip up sweater. The color is alabaster. Man, I can't wait to wear that this fall. And Cindy got the Mongolian cashmere boat neck sweater in heather gray. And I'm telling you, these are classic pieces at a fraction of the price. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/RLRC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/RLRC to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/RLRC. You'll thank me later.
And you get your own independent autopsy, and they're saying you basically, and I hate to put it like this, mom just effing beat to death,
right,
and a violent death. Right. So what happens?
So years go by where I'm
right.
just, and
this
begging somebody, please take a look at this case. There's so much wrong with this. At this point, I knew, my father had killed my mom.
Right.
And then I heard the podcast, about, the Mary Pucho case, and listened to you and heard about Zach, and,
right.
There was a Facebook group, that was for unsolved
right.
cases in West Baton Rouge Parish.
Right.
And I did make a post on there, begging somebody, please see this, please,
right.
help me with this. And a detective actually had reached out to me about it, and said, hey, talk to Zach Simmers. He may be able to get this case reopened, So, and I dismissed it at first. Yeah. Honestly, I was like, you know what? I don't want to get my hopes up again.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything can be done, and I was hesitant. I didn't want to.
You didn't know Zach at this time?
No, right, I did not. Right. I had never met him, wouldn't know him if I had seen him.
Right.
So that detective had asked me again, hey, seriously, I've already talked to him about the case. Why don't you reach out to him? So I did. And he had already. He was waiting on me to call him. Right. Honestly, he was busy working. The Mary Pucho case.
Right.
And
shout out.
Yeah. So I guess it was one of those things of, hey, you know what? Let's get these cases done. They've been sitting here this long, and this isn't right. Finally, someone cared. Finally, my mom wasn't just, a file.
Right.
She was a person. She
right.
mattered.
Right.
She was my mom.
Right.
As much as it meant to me, it mattered to somebody else too,
right.
to see her get justice. And so first meeting we had, it was an introductory meeting, but I was sitting there looking at all these guys thinking, am I just
spinning the wheels
about to, fall flat on my face again? How bad is this one going to hurt?
And tell us about it.
And I remember it, and it was a very brief meeting because we were neck deep in the Pucho case. And I remember walking out of that meeting like, man, I should have stayed there a little longer and gave her a little bit more. Yeah. But look. So I was once in a position at the sheriff's office where I could make a difference. I know I was, okay? Right. And I want to get this straight for everybody. The minute that I found out I could no longer make a difference, I walked away. I took a leave of absence, and I decided to campaign for sheriff, okay? Going back to when this happened, when I was approached by Glenn Hennigan, who said, hey, man, we need to take a look at this. And I said, Glenn, my hands are full. Take it, run with it. When, like you say, let the chips fall where they fall. And, you'd be doing me a favor. I trust you. Right. You get a team of guys together. Y'all go do this while we're doing this. And Glenn and them were helping us with the Pucho case, too, at the same time.
Any good leader is smart enough to surround himself with the best people. He's smart enough to know where you're weak or don't have the time for, et cetera. I mean, you have these people in place that you can trust.
I say this all the time.
Tell me.
If you're the smartest person in the room that you're standing in, you need to find a different room.
Exactly. Yeah. I may not be the smartest. So
I'm definitely not the smartest. Right. And I'm proud to admit it. I surround myself with smart people. And at the sheriff's office, we have really good, smart, competent people.
Right.
That
want to do their jobs.
Yes. They
want to be led.
Sometimes they aren't allowed to do their jobs.
I know. And I came up in the sheriff's office too before I went to state police, and even the state police, that happens, and for unfortunate reasons. But it takes a man to nut up on me, like, hey, you know what? I don't care what you do to me.
That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me the day I decided to leave. I said, you know what? I'm gone. I can no longer make a difference. Every little bit of authority or that I had was I no longer had, and I'm not just going to sit in this chair all day long until the election comes and goes. You know, I was planning on taking a leave of absence anyway the day that I qualified. Okay, which would have been August to October or November if it goes to a runoff. So I ended up having to do this in February.
Right. Yeah.
And I wanted to do it before that, but I just didn't have the vacation.
Yeah, and you know what's bad about that is, okay, so I understand, you know, you did Mary's case and stepping up on this case, et cetera, and you know what? And it's so unfortunate, and especially organizations like, you know, the sheriff's office have been around forever, and they got people and been in certain positions forever. They don't want the young buck, kind of like what I was too.
When I was in narcotics, I didn't want somebody from detectives to come and tell me how to do my job. You know, and I understand the feeling that some of these guys had towards me, and I consciously told myself, "Hey, you're going to do the right thing. You'll have time to repair these relationships with these people. You're not doing it to make anybody look bad.
Exactly.
You're doing it because it's the right thing to do." And I learned that from Richie Johnson. Doing the right thing is not always the easiest thing, but guess what? It's still the right thing to do.
Still the right thing to do, and you can't go wrong with doing it. So when I came through Livingston, I wasn't from here. You know, I made detective in like a year and a half, and they had people that had been waiting for years to make detectives. Then you had the detectives who have been in there for years, and I get in there, hey, you know what I'm doing? I'm doing by the book. I'm doing stuff, and I mean, I caught the same kind of shit. And the powers that be have been stuck there forever in their status quo. They want to go along to get along. I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and you did it also, and that's fire. So so you have the first meeting with Zach. How did you feel when you left? Still apprehensive that maybe they're just placating me?
Yeah. Honestly, I was very apprehensive. I mean, 9 years had gone by, you know, and I felt like
it's 9 Christmases, 9 Thanksgiving without the cornbread dress, and 9 birthdays for everybody.
Yeah. I felt like what I was saying was heard. You know, Zach listened, Glenn listened, everybody heard what I was saying. You know, it was a bunch of guys with beards and T-shirts. You know, it wasn't what I expected, you know, when I thought of police officers, you know. They weren't in uniform. But talking to them, you know, dressed as everyday people, you know, it made me more comfortable. It made them feel more human, you know, I guess. But there wasn't any promises of, hey, we're going to solve this case. Mm-hmm. You know, it was the promise of, I'm going to give my all.
Right.
And it took a while for me to give trust, you know, because that was something that I just knew. I felt like, you know, after so long had gone by that they would hear me, but they would lose interest, or, you know, like what had happened before with the AG's office or the first detective where, you know, maybe it seemed too hard for him or something. I don't really know.
I'm going to tell you something and interrupt you. Something flipped for you, though, because you and I had started talking about me working your mama's case on real life, real crime. And then you were like, at a certain point, you were like, hold off.
Yeah.
Because we got I'm going to say superstar. We got, got these guys, Zach and Glenn and all of them that are, I truly believe they're doing, you told me something like that. I truly believe they're handling it, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So tell me about that. What was the turning point for you?
Well, you know, when, honestly, when Glenn was asking me, hey, you know, I see in here in this report that there's a document. Do you have this particular document? Yes, I do. Okay. And then, you know, it was, well, what about this? When the questions were being asked to me, you know,
which had never been asked before.
No. You know, it was, you know, me going to the other ones previously asking, well, what about this? Or what about this? Well, I saw that there was a true interest.
Right.
You know, and they did it. They cared. You know, Mama got justice.
Well, let's talk about that. Zach, tell me what happened in the case. Tell the listeners what happened in the case.
And this one thing sticks out with me whenever I'm reading through the Rinaudo case, and it's if you don't know any better, you don't know any better. I guess it just goes back to that, and not knocking anybody, but who in the world would let the only suspect hold a tape measure to get measurements at a crime scene? And I know when Glenn and these guys looked at this, and look, there's a lot of guys that worked on both of these cases that we're talking about, from uniform patrol to, and some people, he just went and got his guys from narcotics to do all this. No, it was a bunch of people working on this, from uniform patrol, detectives. It was a lot of guys. And Addis Police Department, shout out to them. They came and they were like, hey, they had a new young detective. Cool. And he, he's still wet behind the ears, and he wanted to jump in head first. And, without all of those guys, this wouldn't have been made possible. Both cases. Both cases. But there's just a lot of discrepancies in the way this case was originally worked up. And, these guys, I remember Glenn having boxes and boxes of paperwork. Boxes and boxes. So he's working on that. While just because we arrested Peanut Pusho in the first 24 hours, that doesn't mean the case is over.
No. That's the probable cause, 50% plus one.
I would go to sleep at night with my headphones in, listening to jail phone calls. And, they were doing the same thing on this. And every now and then they'd brief me on what they got going on, and I'd brief Glenn and his team, and we would share ideas. And, hey, man, you need to look at this. Hey, Zach, you need to look at that.
Two minds better than one, and three are better than two.
This was a collaborative effort amongst so many people. And I feel a little off-put or a little bad sitting here, and we keep talking about Zach. Yes, I did facilitate these things, but I didn't personally work them all.
So let me rephrase that. But I'm not going to get off this. Okay, the statement being naturally, it's all these guys that wanted to make a difference. They wanted to be good law enforcement professionals. But I'm gonna throw this out there because I know it's the truth. Somebody has to stand up originally and be like, need to work this, right? Then back to being a good leader, or being a good sheriff, or being a good.
They knew that I wasn't going to let anything happen to them.
Exactly, and you're going to stand up. You're going to take care of them, and y'all work the cases together, and because it's the right thing to do. But there had to be a. I know from my experience, you have to have a leader to coordinate all of it, right?
I can't take all the credit for that either. This lady right here,
no.
She never quit. She never gave up.
Absolutely. Shout out to family.
Jesus, I can't imagine. What if I work I don't care what kind of case it is, thinking about what if this was my mama?
That's exactly
what if this was my daughter?
Courtney Coco's case, it took 19 years to almost to the day to get the conviction, which comes up in 2 weeks last year. But that family never gave up either. And then I'd say on the thing, what if it was your mama? What if it was your daughter? And I get it. The families certainly deserve the credit. I'm talking about specifically in law enforcement, and what, you need to be elected sheriff because the people of West Baton Rouge, first of all, I know they got to have more cases, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, but the people elect the powers to be because they believe in them, just like you believed and never, in the beginning you were like, well, he's saying it's not. But people want to believe in law enforcement. But unfortunately, there's for whatever reasons, there's good and bad in every profession, and we need more good ones. And if one good one can be a leader and get his teams together and let those dogs eat, right? And that's what's needed. And certainly the sheriff can't solve every case himself, but that's why either you're a leader or you're not, bro. Either you got the fire in your gut for justice or you don't.
You empower people to do their job.
Exactly.
We're being paid to do a job, and that job is law enforcement. And I said this, I'll say it again. I believe that the taxpayers of the parish of West Baton Rouge are paying for a service, and they're just not getting their money worth.
Right.
And I intend on changing that. And back to Reagan. Reagan was hesitant. She won't say this, but I will. She was hesitant to meet with me about her mother's case due to my relationship with a few people,
Right.
And I'm glad that that we got it done, I don't give a damn. Right is right and wrong is wrong at the end of the day. I don't care. You know, you're either doing right or you're not.
That's right.
You know?
And you came up in the sheriff's office, like you said, and you know, you're fearing that he may not do it because of, you know, the people over him and stuff like that. Well, here's the deal. Like, you still, what's right is right, what's right is wrong. I mean, what's right is right, period. But I'm below Creed. You got to have the balls, though, bro. You got to have the balls to step up and do it and take that heat. And you know what? It's so many different angles on the situation. The ones that don't want you to work, it could be jealousy. It could be that they don't want to get in trouble for this, or they don't want to get a black eye. You know, how come we didn't solve it 9 years ago, or however long it's. Again, it comes back to somebody's got to make it right. Somebody's got to take the first initial step. You not giving up is number one. You stepping up and all the great guys, Glenn and everybody that did it, that's number two, and you got to put it together. So tell me what happened in the conclusion of your mom's case. How did the arrest come about?
Well, roughly about 6 months go by, and I learned that there was going to be a grand jury hearing to see if there was going to be enough evidence to indict my father. He was indicted. He was, in fact, indicted. And the most ironic thing in all of this, honestly, is he passed away on the 10-year anniversary of my mom's murder.
I remember that that was just crazy.
I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that.
But you know, that gave me goosebumps. But go ahead.
But you know, after he was indicted for murder, you know, that was really, I had communication with Zach throughout the case. You know, here and there, you know, he would call me and ask me for this information or that information, or, you know, kind of keeping me updated as to what was going on. Because again, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in the, I guess, the
powers that be.
Yeah, the powers that be. Yeah. Initially.
It's okay, but Zach, let me throw it to you real quick.
Yeah.
You got to do a grand jury?
I mean, I was there. I wasn't in there, but yeah, I was there. So we met with Reagan before this, and we met with Tony Clayton and some members of his staff, some ADAs. Definitely a shout out to Tony Clayton. Before we took this meeting with Glenn and some of these detectives, I won't mention their names because look, Glenn doesn't care if he gets in trouble. I'll tell you that right now. And if I get him in trouble for saying his name, then shame on them. But some of these other guys.
I'll give him a shout out to Glenn. He's straight up good D.
So I pulled Tony Clayton in the other room, and I told him, I said, listen, bro, I need you to walk in here. This is the kind of relationship I have with this man. I said, I need you to walk in here, and I know how hard it's going to be. But these dudes have worked really, really, really hard on this. I need you to walk in here. I need you to keep your mouth shut for the whole presentation. Get you a pen and a paper and write down every question you have. And if anybody knows Tony Clayton, they know how hard that was for him.
Yeah, oh my God. I'll tell you my story on him in a minute.
But he walked in there and he honored that, and he kept his mouth shut the whole time. And when it was said and done, he said, let's go. There's nothing else that you could show me.
And he's a true bulldog. Yeah, I actually had Dylan way back when Richard was alive. I was Dylan's, and Miss Tony probably doesn't remember it, but it doesn't matter. And then in Mary's case, that was what it was. And then another case came up afterwards. He actually called me on my cell phone. He's like, bro, you know, this and this and this. And we talked it out, and I got on air, and I gave him the proper shout out, said that he should have gotten. So, but they indicted it, and tell me about the rest.
If anybody doesn't think Tony Clayton wants bad guys to be put in jail,
he's like the ultimate pit bull.
They need their heads examined. He sees crime for what it is, black and white. Breaking the law is breaking the law.
He doesn't care.
So I'm sorry, what was your question?
Tell me about the arrest.
You know, I wasn't even there when they arrested him. You know, they secured a warrant. They secured a warrant. And they went to his house and they got him. He was there with his girlfriend, and you know, the rest is history. You know, we brought him to a grand jury, indicted him. They arrested him, and you know, he died awaiting his day.
Did he ever make a statement about after the arrest?
No, not to me, he didn't.
No. I hate to say it, but hell or jail. I mean, hopefully he got his business straight.
I mean, it says the judge put $1 million bond on it.
Right. Which is, you know, everybody technically has a right to a bond or a reasonable amount or whatever, but $1 million is high and well deserved. And then he died 10 years to the day, you said?
10 years to the day from the day he murdered.
Well, you know what? I think it's a great case of justice served, and you're a beautiful person. You never gave up. You fought, and I hope your kids learn from it, and I hope somebody else out there. I used to get a couple cases a day before Courtney's case, requests from people from all around the country. Oh, look at my family's cold case. Look at my family's cold case, and then after Courtney's case, and then Dateline, now I get like 10 a day. You know, that many people are out there hurting every single day, and they believe, and they want to go on and believe. And then you get people, you not giving up, Zach and Glenn and all the guys that did step up and take it on, and that's just a big shout out. So I don't want to say congratulations because it doesn't really give you any closure, and it never's going to bring your mom back. But I think it's a beautiful story, and I'm glad we got to tell it. So
thank you.
And real quick, I'm gonna ask you something, Zach. I'm not trying to make this political or anything. I'm asking that certainly a lot of apartments, especially smaller ones, don't have the training and the expertise and all that. You said something about they let her dad hold the tape measure. And I said, dude, I know I don't know what your platform is and all that, but I know you as a man and a law enforcement professional. And other cases that need to be worked, right? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do for?
And it's not just her dad.
Yeah. People walking in and out of the scene probably didn't write them down and everything else.
You know this.
Yeah.
To work homicides in Louisiana, all you have to be is post-certified homicide investigator, okay? Which is one class that you go to and it never expires, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm going to change that. There's so much free training out there, and I was fortunate enough to work for a man who is no longer with us, Richie Johnson, who made me go to. When I say made, I was a young deputy spending 3 and 4 weeks away from home, and he would make me go to all this training. I look back at it now and how fortunate I was because some of these people at the sheriff's office weren't afforded these opportunities.
He saw it in you. He did the same thing for me in the polygraph world.
This case right here is one of the reasons why we're required to be certified to work homicides in Louisiana.
Right.
And there's so much. So right now, the sheriff's office does do above the bare minimum with training. I'm not saying we're at the bare minimum. We're not. We're above, but we could be above and beyond.
Right.
It's just like anything. Doctors don't go to medical school in the 80s and quit training. We have to hone our skills.
Right.
These criminals out there, they're training too.
Every day.
And I learned that from fooling with the cartels and things like that, being in narcotics. They are always trying to one-up us. We always have to be trained. Training, not just basic training, advanced training. And it's out there. And it's a lot of it's free.
And you get a lot of grant monies and everything
Correct.
else. Jason Ard, Willie back in the day, Sheriff Gray's, always gave us the best training and the best equipment. And he told me, one day I know one of my guys is going to get killed on duty, but it won't be because they didn't have the training or the proper equipment, right? But there's a lot of places that don't do that. They're like, I'm generational sheriff and all this, and we're going to keep going on the good old boy network. But it absolutely needs innovation. Look, West Baton Rouge, from when you started, it's got to be, I don't know how much the population's had to grow, and it's still growing. So it can't be stuck in the things that we used to do, or law enforcement agents can't be stuck in things that they used to get by.
It's 2023,
right?
It's 2023.
And real quick, because I know y'all got to go. Tell me again. I know training and stepping everything up. But what are you? I already know what the answer is going to be. This. What is your view, or what is your promise that you're going to do if you get elected? Or I'm going to say when you get elected. If I was in West Baton Rouge, I'd be voting for you, but unfortunately I'm not.
My promise to the people of West Baton Rouge Parish and the Sheriff's Office, day one, there's going to be a change. There'll be accountability across the board, equality across the board. It's no longer about who you know, it's about what you know.
Right.
And I've seen that with my own eyes. Transparency. Right. I'm sitting here today, being very transparent.
Right. Laying it out.
Those are basic fundamentals that we often forget about. And it's almost like, when you're the king of your kingdom for so long, you forget about these things. And training, proactive police work, letting cops be cops.
Right.
Why do we always have to react to a crime? I'm not naive, and I know we're not going to solve all crime before, or stop it before it happens, but we can give the people a service. The service is law enforcement, and be proactive and take the handcuffs off the police officers. Let them do their job.
Right. That's love, bro.
The good old boy days, they're over with.
That's it.
They're over with.
And you know what? Not only, they should be over with, but everybody's got a cell phone, and everybody's, got a camera nowadays and stuff like that. My thought process on that is, I'm like, it's okay. Yeah, you could record me because I was going to be doing the right thing, right?
In an effort to be
accountability,
as transparent as I can be. Right, I'm going to say this right now. Mike Cass, the sheriff, my boss, is working twice as hard on me not getting elected than he was on getting his own self elected 4 years ago.
Right. Well,
just let that sink in.
I would figure that would be because he knows that if you get in, all that
things
stuff,
are going to change.
The strings are going to be cut, right? So, shout out to you, bro. It takes a lot of guts, and Miss Reagan, you are amazing. And I appreciate your support from me all these years also.
Absolutely. You know what? Seriously, thank you for everything that you do.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you did for Mary. Thank you for everything you've done for me and for being supportive.
I appreciate that. But I'm no longer in the law enforcement, right? But like Zach, I believe in doing what's right. And let the chips fall where they may. I don't give a shit who gets mad at me. We're going to try to always do the right thing.
You got to stand for something.
It's got to stand for something and fall for anything. So, I'm going to say this, and I don't ever do politics, but to me, this is not about politics. This is about getting someone across the river that can bring it into this century and give those people, everybody over there, and such wonderful people. And I have so many great friends over there, but bring West Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office into this century, cut the good old boy networks, and roll with it, right? So there won't be another family like you that's had to suffer for all these years,
right?
Or Mary's family.
And I want to say this. There are other families in West Baton Rouge Parish right now that are suffering.
Yeah,
they're suffering.
I get it.
Day one. I cannot promise that we will solve these cases.
No.
Day one, I promise that we will start looking at these cases. In fact, I hope that this podcast that we're doing right now, I hope they get started on these cases before the new sheriff takes office.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So that would be great.
Right.
That would be great.
Yeah.
If not, day one, here we go. Let's go. These boys better get ready to work because I'm ready to work.
Let's do it. Hey, you know what? I want to offer this to you too. And if there's any way I can help, real life, real crime, and we've had some proved successes on working these cases and stuff, or whatever. You can come in anytime as sheriff or whatever, Glenn. I don't care who comes in, but let's use this platform to get justice for other families like yours without them having to wait for so long.
Hey, man.
So
I want to be accountable to you. You've done a lot for our little community that you don't even realize. You really have.
It's the right thing to do, bro. Same thing you're trying to do. And I want to thank y'all for coming in today. You got any last thoughts or anything you want to say?
Yes. Thank you, Zach, for standing up and for doing what is right. Sitting in my shoes for as long as I sat in my shoes. And you know what? You didn't stop there. You could have said, hey, you know what? This family, they got their justice. He's sitting in jail awaiting trial. But you know what? When he died in jail, you seriously were the first person, you and Sarah both, were the first two people that reached out to me to make sure that I was okay. Because, yes, that was a big one to swallow. So thank you.
Well,
thank you.
You don't have to thank me for doing my job, but I thank you for everything that you've done. You like I said earlier, she was the biggest asset to this case. You, Woody, thank you. She just said my wife's name, and I want to give a shout out to my wife, because without my wife, I'd be nothing.
Right. I get that.
This has been a hard 2 years for us, but you know what? What don't kill you makes you stronger, and we can do anything through Christ. And I really believe that, and it's in His hands, and we're going to take it day by day, and we're going to keep doing what's right. And as long as, and I really live, that's a code that I live by that was taught to me by Richie Johnson. Once again, if you're doing the right thing, you have nothing to worry about.
That's right. And I really, really appreciate y'all. I'm excited about the future for y'all, and what we can do together, and everything else. And again, shout out to all your guys, and shout out to Glenn and everybody else who wants to do the right thing. I end every episode talking about LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. If you are a lifer from, give me a country.
Australia.
If you're a lifer from down under, Miss Reagan says, and you want to become an organ donor, you don't have to be from the state of Louisiana. Go to lopa.org, fill out the little questionnaire. It takes a couple minutes, y'all. They're saving lives every day. And, be a hero, be an organ donor. And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life Real Crime, the podcast. Until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door.